everyone, and welcome back to Tales from the Table Studios. We're here doing with a very exciting game, but before that, we're going to talk about what's brought us all together for this and all of our other events this month. Up until the end of August, we are running a really exciting reproductive rights charity drive that includes a bunch of games, and all of the money that you donate is going to the National Network of Abortion Funds. That helps with medical bills, travel, any form of temporary housing, and anything else to help people who are unfortunately currently having their bodily autonomy assailed continue to have the right to exert that self-autonomy, because unfortunately we are in a place right now where that is just not the case, and it is awful. So we're doing everything we can to try and take a stand against that. We've had some amazing games so far. We've had some incredible donations. Thank you again to everyone who has been a part of this in any and all ways, whether it be donations, being on any of our streams, being a part of the Days of Tales stream marathon weekend, being, in the chat, just hanging out, sharing it on any social media. Seriously, everything counts. If you can't donate, it doesn't mean you can't help, and that's important to remember. So we've got some really, really cool games coming up. Tonight, we're going to be doing, or today, actually, we're going to be doing Terror at Bone Gulch, and then tomorrow we will be back with Dice Trays Action. After that, on Wednesday, we're going to have episode 2 of Riga, Tomb of Sorrows. Then we're going to round out the week on Thursday with Avatar Legends, The Breaking Point, episode 2. It's really exciting. We've had some great games so far. This is going to be an amazing game. I cannot wait to pass it off. So I'm going to do that in just a second. The last thing I would like to bring up is we have a Discord now. It's really exciting. We've got a great community. All of the amazing people who are involved in this event, you can find there. So if you want to talk to any of them, ask why they did things, tell them your thoughts, get some tips and tricks, all of that is something you can do just by joining our Discord. The link is below, which is also where the link for the charity donation is. And it can be pulled up at any time in chat by going !donate, one word. If the bot's not working, don't worry. I'll make sure I get that link to you anyway. Now, speaking about donations, if you donate $15 or more, you'll have the option for the next episode to either give our cast a lucky break or turn up the heat. That's not something you can only do once either. If you donate $30 or more, you can do multiples of those. You can give them a lucky break and turn up the heat. You can turn up the heat twice. That's the one I want to see. No matter what you do, I promise it's going to be an amazing game. You'll get the opportunity to help some people who really need it and have an impact on, this game as well. How often can you say that one action affects 2 worlds at once? It's pretty neat. With that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to our esteemed GM so that the game can get introduced and they can get to it. Thank you so much and enjoy.
I don't know how I'm esteemed or anything like that, but I am, in fact, Jack Gogsbane on Twitter, and all you really need to know about me is that I'm running this here actual play in GURPS, Bone Gulch, Terror at Bone Gulch, set in the Old West in Arizona in 1880. Now, Bone Gulch, Arizona is a town of 2,000 people. Railroad resupply town with small nearby silver and copper mines. The town is named because of a large number of bones, mixed human and animal, found in the small canyon the town's built next to. It's in Navajo County, in between the Navajo lands and the Apache. The year's 1880. This boom town of about 2,000 folks sprang up overnight almost 2 years ago when the railroad came this way and stalled, building a bridge over the gulch. They're still building it. Meanwhile, silver was discovered nearby, and that was enough for a town to spring up. A lawless town with 14 saloons, 10 gambling houses, 4 brothels, 2 dance halls, and only 1 church. A town with more shootouts than Tombstone, and where the lifespan of a lawman is measured in hours from when he puts on the star. Boot Hill is full of folks who thought they were fast with a gun, but turned up short. It's a strange town. Not far away, maybe 10, 15 miles, there's a big crater where a shooting star hit, they say, tens of thousands of years ago. To the northeast, the Painted Desert and the Petrified Forest. About the same distance away, there's a cave where a whole bunch of Apache got trapped by the Navajo after a real bad raid. They all got smoked to death, and that weren't but 2 years back. The gulch itself has piles and piles of bone at the bottom. Some folks say they used to sacrifice here, but nobody knows for sure. About a year ago, real rich fella named Sir Reginald Gwill sent a bunch of folks out here with construction materials, and they built him a big old mansion right on the edge of the gulch, just north of town on a high ridge. It's done now, and 3 days back, a whole passel of stagecoaches showed up bringing more stuff. They say Sir Gwill is coming himself soon to stay. He's one of the mine owners and a part owner of the rail line, so I guess it makes sense. Now, it's March now, so it's a fair bit colder than most folks expect. It's running in the high 40s at night, high 60s, low 70s during the day. Been overcast for about a week now, a little more than usual this time of year. Last 2 mornings, the whole area's been thick fog, hard to see your hand in front of your face, and it don't burn off till afternoon. It ain't slowed down the carousing, but there've been less shootings than usual. Guess folks are just subdued by the weather. Now, if you would be so kind as to introduce yourselves as I call your names, my fine cast consists of Justina.
Hi, I'm Justina, and I'll be playing the schoolmarm Eloise Collier tonight.
Very good. Stefan.
Hi, I'm Stefan Huddleston, and I will be playing Sam Fawcett, a former born a slave, veteran of the Civil War, former Buffalo soldier. And I can't introduce Sam without introducing his horse Liza, because his horse is everything.
Christopher.
My name is Christopher R. Rice, and I will be playing Isaiah Akacheta, a half Native American who fought for the South and ended up in Andersonville. His whole purpose was to save his men from what he deemed a bloody fate, despite the two powers that they found themselves being in the middle of.
And Mr. McCallister.
I'm known as the Eye. I play Jacob McCallister, also a Civil War vet, but nobody quite knows who or which side they worked for at the time. Kind of a simple drawl, most likely from a poor neighborhood of some sort. But coming into town, looking might bit interesting.
All righty. Our story opens with these 4 very different individuals. Well, 3 of them got somewhat in common, but still, they ain't quite the same. All gathered together in a little place called the Smokehouse Saloon. Smokehouse Saloon is run by a fellow who himself probably a half-blood Injun. He'd been there a little while, and folks don't seem to give him too much trouble. His name is John Red Cloud, and he serves some of the best beer and whiskey in town. Like most folks, he don't serve water. Now, it's around about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when our folks find themselves in the saloon, each for their own reasons. And I'm about to ask them to tell you what those reasons are. Mr. McCallister, we'll start with you. Why is Mr. McCallister in the saloon?
Well, Mr. McCallister likes to come around these sort of parts to get the general lay of the land, likes to know who's where and why, and also has a bit of an attention towards the more ungiving rich around those parts.
Well, that seems fair enough. Christopher, what is Mr. Atacheka doing here?
You can just call him Isaiah. Isaiah just
All of
finished
these-
killing Garvey twins. They were causing problems for some of the folks on the outer edge of Bone Gulch. And a bunch of people got together, gave him money, so he went out and killed them and added their bones to the pile. So it's thirsty work.
Certainly seems like it. Stefan, what is Samuel there for?
Well, Sam does not is not one to drink to excess, but he does appreciate a fine beverage with a little something extra to it. So if this place has some of the best in town, that's where Sam would be.
All righty. Justina, this might be the most difficult question. What is Eloise, the local schoolmarm, doing in that saloon?
Well, the children have just gotten out, and I generally take a medicinal glass of whiskey every day at the end of the school day.
All righty. One can often need a little bit of settling of the nerves after dealing with children all day, especially in one of those hot schoolhouses. Speaking of hot, it's mighty hot in here, so just like the fella who's behind the bar, I'm taking my hat off. All righty. So, y'all are all sitting around in the saloon. It ain't too busy. Probably 5 or 6 other people, because most of the rest of the town, as is fairly common in these parts, is sleeping in during the hottest part of the day, having themselves a little siesta. And y'all here out in the main street, which is really just a packed dirt road, y'all hear the rattling and rumbling of a stagecoach and then another. Now, it's only been a few days since several of them came in, so you wouldn't really expect more than one, even if it is bringing this Sir Gwill or whoever it is to town. It being 3 o'clock, it's bright and sunshiny and as warm as it's about to get today out there in the street. Ain't no shade. Miss Collier, what is your first response to these sounds?
I'm going to go look out the window and just see what's there, what this stagecoach looks like. And do I recognize it? Is there any marking that I might not have seen before?
You do not recognize the stagecoach. Rather than a marking you've seen before, on it on the side, there's a very old-fashioned shield shape, like a piece of heraldry. And what it is a green snake on a black field. Stefan, what is Mr. Fawcett's response, if any?
Sam would look across the room, kind of scan the room, and he's not going to get up, but he's just going to see what everyone else is doing.
Fair enough. And Isaiah, what's he up to?
I'm going to use observation to kind of pick up on anything that's there without being obvious.
Very good. Observation is a great skill for that. That's one of my favorites.
Succeeded by 4.
Excellent. Just so some of the newer ones among you know, when you roll, not only do I need to know whether you made it or not, I need to know how many points you made it by, because your margin of success can really matter in some cases. All right. Isaiah, you were seated in such a way as to have your back against the wall, but also have a good sight line of the outside and the windows. So without really having to flick your eyes over too much, you see this stagecoach, and you see very clearly as the driver gets off the stagecoach, he's about a good 7 foot tall and an axe handle and a half across the shoulders, maybe. He probably weighs, almost 300 pounds. The stagecoach rises a good 2 inches once he steps off it. Now, he gets down and comes around, not quite running, but moving real quick. And you see he's a man of very pale complexion, and he's got a wide hat to keep the sun off him. But his cheeks are a little sunburned, and his knuckles are sunburned as well. He's been driving for a mite. He comes around and opens up the side door, and stepping out of it is a tall, slender gentleman. Not near as tall as his manservant, no, but tall enough. And what some of the local ladies might refer to as a tall drink of water, because he is a very, very pretty man. Long, smooth, wavy black hair tilting back over his collar, a cravat pulled up tight, beautiful black silk shirt, waistcoat over it in fine brocade, long black coat. You can't see his hands at all. He's wearing gloves. As he steps out, he puts a top hat on and pulls his cane, which has a silver head shaped like a snake that he uses to move out into the street. Although he doesn't seem to need it for support. He's not limping or anything. A whole bunch of other folks are bustling back and forth, unloading things or changing where they're loaded, as he and his manservant begin to head toward the saloon, and the stagecoaches head up out to the ridge where the new house is. Mr. McCallister, what are you doing?
Well, Jacob will be actually sitting right next to the window that Eloise will be walking up towards. And as his eye drifts over the stagecoach and notices her approach, his eye flicks over to her and says, "You know who that is?"
No, sir, I don't.
Not a fine looking stagecoach for a measly little town like this, no?
I suppose so.
And, Jacob will put his eyes back on the approaching figures as they come up to the stage, to the saloon, and kind of just leans his chair back and watches as they enter.
Barkeep seems to have noticed him pretty good too, looking out over the swinging doors that lead into the saloon. And seems like he might have heard what you said to Miss Eloise as well, as he says, well before they come in, and hopefully while they're still out of earshot, there's plenty of rich folks in this town. They just don't normally come here.
With such fine company, I don't understand why.
Well, you might say it's to do with my complexion, or perhaps my hair.
Maybe a trip to the barber will fix that.
Son, I don't think you understand what you're talking about, and you probably want to step that back just a bit.
My apologies. I was trying to do a joke. I understand that issue is not to my liking either.
All right. So as they are headed into the bar, you see that the large gentleman is carrying a heavy looking briefcase. It looks heavy just by the way he's holding it. along as he follows along behind his employer. But his body language doesn't say employer and employee exactly. Can y'all go ahead and give me whoever happens to have a body language roll or just a general perception? Either one of those they'll give you different answers, but you can go ahead and roll them.
So that would be observation, I expect.
Yeah, if you're trying to do so without giving away, obviously, that you're doing so, it is observation.
All right. And what would I roll for that exactly?
You roll 3 dice 6, and you tell me how much under or over you are the number on your sheet.
Gotcha. That's 11. That's 15, and that's over by 3 on the observation I got.
Well, then you're not really able to make heads or tails of his body language. Yes. Go
I
ahead.
happen to have body language, and I got a 4.
Oh, a critical success on reading this fella's body language. His body language says slave, which can't be right. Slavery's been illegal for some time now, even out here in Arizona.
I went with observation, and I got a 12, which is even with mine.
Considering your own personal circumstances and your familiarity with the subject, you actually are able to make the same conclusion. It's just that I'll be giving a little bit more information to Eloise here in a moment after I've gone round.
I do not have body language, and it cannot be defaulted.
Correct.
Except through detect lies or psychology. So I made another observation roll. I rolled an 8, so I succeeded by a total of 6.
All right. What you notice, because that's a pretty good margin, what you notice is that the fella's hands, the big fella's hands, aren't just sunburned, they're also heavily calloused. Like he has punched some very solid objects very hard on a regular basis. Looks like he's put together like a prize fighter, although you'd hate to see what happened to the other fellow when he's this big.
Does he have any weapons on him that are visible?
Not that you can see.
Don't get in close. Got it.
So system question here, since it's been a while for me with GURPS.
Absolutely.
I do have detect lies, and so based on context clues, I'm assuming that where it says default body language -4, then I could make a language with detect lies at a -4.
That is correct.
Is that okay? Just check.
Yep. The two, when you have related skills in GURPS, you can very often use one at a negative because you have some of the ability to figure it out. All right. So now that we've gone through what everybody can basically tell, except for, what Isaiah just figured out was only for the good observation checks. Eloise, his body language is subservient. It's like a slave, but it's like the very different than a slave who has been well treated. It's the body language of an obsequious slave, a slave who is utterly subservient because they are both they're both kind of obsessed with their master and horrifically afraid of them.
Right. So what can I use body language to see what's going on with the more dominant person in this relationship, the tall, beautiful man? Can I do that?
You can absolutely try to do so. Also, as Isaiah, as they get in closer, I'm not going to require another observation check for this because you succeeded quite well and you're still just looking. You would probably guess from his appearance that the big scarred man is maybe Eastern European in descent. All righty.
Hmm.
What'd you get on that roll, Eloise?
I got a 9 this time
9 out of
out of 13.
very good. That's a success by 4. And what you figure out about the tall, slim gentleman's body language is he's not pretending to be rich. He's rich. He's not just rich. He's been rich his whole life, and everyone he knows has been rich their whole life. You can tell that he is utterly self-assured and couldn't care less about the fellow following him except for his utility. He moves as though the person behind him is effectively a pack animal. And then as he turns toward the bar, you realize his body language suggests that his regard for everyone in this room is probably the same.
Okay.
All righty. What are we doing at this time, Mr. McCallister?
Well, Mr. McCallister is still leaning back in their chair and tapping on their knee a bit. Obviously, this individual is someone that I am not too fond of. But at the same time, not any particular rush to do anything about it. And he'll turn to the owner of this saloon, I believe, is Red Cloud, you said?
John Red Cloud.
Is he still near me?
He wasn't super near you. You were just on his side of the establishment near the bar.
And how far away is the rich fella from me?
About 5 feet. Saloon isn't that big.
Gotcha. Pretty close. Jacob is probably just going to keep watching, knowing how relatively notorious he is. He doesn't want to necessarily make a grandstand at the moment. So quietly, he'll just sit there, guess kind of between Red Cloud and Eloise, and make sure his hands are up on the table to not try to make himself look like any sort of threat at the moment.
Very reasonable. And Samuel, what is Samuel doing at this time?
I'm just gonna keep my eyes on these two new fellas, kind of watch them as they move into the room, kind of try and gain a sense of what their business is, but I'm not gonna I'm gonna shoot some looks, but I'm not staring or trying to make it overt.
All righty. Samuel, do you have observation on your sheet?
I do.
Then that is what you would roll for that purpose.
Righty, let's see what we get here. So I got 4 under.
Excellent. Yeah. Other than what you've already been told, it's pretty obvious that he's heading toward the bar and the owner in order to possibly talk to him about some sort of business matter. His demeanor is very businesslike. Isaiah.
Well, I don't like him. I don't like his body language. I don't like how he's treating people. I don't like how he's looking at people. And I'm not really hiding it.
Mhm.
So my body language is pretty easy to read.
Okie doke.
I will admit that after killing a couple men, I am still a little bit wired. So my hand is kind of close enough to my gun, but not on my gun, just in case.
Mhm.
I'm not going to shoot him down or anything, but that tall fella, he's making me nervous. I don't like to be nervous.
Quick question about Isaiah. Is there any sort of insignia or any such something that I would notice about their Confederate past, perhaps?
Well, he is wearing his grayback coat that's about 10 years old. It's tattered and frayed, but it's being kept in reasonably good condition.
All right, just wanted to make sure.
All righty. As you allow your feelings to show on your face and your hand to move relatively near to, but not on, your big iron on the hip, the tall, slim fella, gentleman, as it were, catches it out of the corner of his eye and turns, raises one finely trimmed eyebrow, and gives a tiny little sardonic smile. Just for reference sake, think of Tom Hiddleston in Crimson Peak.
Oh, so he does have a punchable face. Got it.
Oh, extremely. Yes, Justina.
Okay, so Eloise attends the church regularly.
Mhm.
Okay, so I am going to walk up and introduce myself using my very best high society manners and invite him to church.
Well, very good. I need you to roll a savoir faire high society if you have it on your sheet, which I believe
I do indeed.
I don't even think I have something that's half as fancy as that on my entire sheet.
Well, you wouldn't, would you?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, I got an 11 out of 13.
All righty. Very respectable approach. You come up prim and proper and make the appropriate sort of gestures. What would you say?
Good afternoon, sir. You are new to our town, and I would like to. My name is Eloise Collier. I'm the school teacher, and I was wondering if you would like to attend services. What is your name, sir?
Well, I I thank you very much for the offer. But I have my own chapel and chaplain up at my new house, so I don't think I should come and take up too much space in the pews here. There's only one church in a town of 2,000 or more people, and my retinue, well, they can be overwhelming at times.
But you are an excellent example to the men of this town, a gentleman of your fine, upstanding bearing.
Well, I might be a good example, but what good is an example you can't possibly follow?
Well, that is a conundrum, something to consider, I suppose. And what is your name, sir?
My name is
Oh,
Sir Reginald Gwyll.
it is a pleasure to meet you, Sir Reginald.
Now, have I heard of this fella before?
No, you haven't. He must have just come out this way from back east, and further back east than most folks, judging by the accent. All righty. Samuel,
Yeah.
have any particular responses to this line of discussion, which is quite public and more than loud enough for everybody to hear?
I'm kind of looking over, and is that the fellow that's with him is the one that has the case, right?
Correct.
How large of it? I mean, is it a large suitcase kind of?
No, it's about briefcase sized.
Okay.
It probably shouldn't it shouldn't be as heavy as it looks like for its size.
So it looks like it's got some heft to it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for somebody his size, he's still putting a little effort into moving it.
Okay. Does it is he only holding it? Does it look like it's attached to him in any other way? He's not wearing like he's not like chained to it or anything.
No, he's not wearing cuffs or manacles
Okay.
to it. But he is being very attentive to it as well as to his employer and the surroundings.
I'm rather interested in what's going on with that case, but I'm not gonna make any moves as far as it's concerned right now. I'm just gonna continue to watch the interaction that's going on at the bar.
Mm-hmm. Christopher?
Sorry, my cat. I'm almost tempted to move over to a booth from the bar. Something about this guy has put all my hair on end, and I don't like it. So I get another drink, and then I go and find a table as far away from Mr. Back East as we possibly can get.
I mean, that's not entirely unreasonable.
As soon as Jacob sees this, Jacob as well is going to move to the bar real close to the two newcomers. Give them a slight nod, tip of their hat, get a drink, and go and join the Dixie. Sit down on the other side of the booth from them.
All right. Very good. Now, at this point, y'all are a good almost 20 feet away when you go to the furthest away booth. So you're probably out of earshot if you wanted to have a whispered conversation of any kind, which we will get back to momentito. Justina, how do you continue this conversation?
I'm trying to figure out what I would roll to be my very best Middle Georgia nasty nice to this man.
That would be a common, would be the lower of your acting or savoir faire. So it'll be savoir faire high society again.
Okay, excellent. Oh, wow. Okay. That is a 3. Oh my God.
Wow.
Out of 13. That's
You
stupid.
are already burning up the dice tray.
I will
hope
die horribly later.
quite possibly, but the dice will decide that, as will your play. Now, whatever you decide to say at this point, he will definitely believe that you are as you portray yourself. Now, what are you saying?
What I say is, I appreciate that you have your own private chaplain and your own private chapel. I mean, it is just a shame that you view yourself as so far above your fellow humans. Your fellow man, you just will not be around us. Is that what you're saying?
Not at all, my dear. You see, it isn't that I think myself above you. It's that I think myself unlike you. We have our experiences are so far apart that I couldn't possibly bring myself to inflict my regular presence on good, God-fearing, law-abiding people.
Well, then, I hope you find some solace.
I'm sure I'll find something useful soon enough. With that, he politely excuses himself and moves directly up to the bar, where he begins to engage John Red Cloud in a discussion about apparently booking a room for the night, because apparently he doesn't want to move into his house until everything is arranged exactly right. Now, why he would want to stay at this saloon, which probably has like 2 rooms, and as I said, is middling quality, as opposed to the big fancy hotel down the street, it's a little weird.
Is there
But-
anything in particular about the rooms here? Would I know?
You might know, given certain things. I would say that what I need you to do is roll area knowledge local.
While that's happening, Sam's gonna be looking around the room to see if there's anyone else that seems to. I suspect that everyone kind of noticed this fellow who seems a bit out of place, but I'm just gonna look to see if I see anyone who seems to be taking sort of an extra interest in him and his companion.
Well, remember, there's only 3 or 4 people other than yourselves and John Red Cloud in here. And 3 of those 4, they looked up, they saw, and they're kind of carefully not looking anymore. Not drawing attention. But yeah, the 4th one, he's looking pretty close, and he ain't being real subtle about it. It's a local gambler by the name of Sean McGillicuddy. He's an Irishman, came in with railroad. He just prefers to make his money gambling and spends all his money from the railroad and from gambling on drink and women.
Alrighty.
Casually reach into my pocket and pull out some jerky that's in a handkerchief, and then just sort of set it on the table, eat a piece, and then slide it over to McCallister and continue sipping my whiskey.
All right, so Isaiah and Jacob are sitting together, and Isaiah has taken the initiative and decided to share some food with the fella he's sharing a table with.
So Jacob, as he's sitting down, kind of spread his cloak, his duster out, and on the inside is a blue patch of cloth with a purple heart kind of just hanging off of it. And as the jerky is passed over, that's when it's noticed that Jacob got 2 drinks. It slides the other one over to Isaiah as, well, the first one ain't that they're drinking ain't gonna last too long. And just kind of nods understandingly. 2 soldiers kind of just looking at each other, and takes a bit of jerky and raises their mask. And Isaiah noticed that on the inside of the mask is very deep scarring running up the side of their cheek. And we'll take the entire shot of whiskey and then take a bite out of the jerky, and just kind of leans back watching the scene unfold before them.
You want to give me a quick observation roll there, Isaiah?
14. I made it just on.
Given your background, you easily recognize that scarring as grape shot. He got caught sideways with a little bit of cannon fire. Lucky to be alive. All right, Samuel.
Yes. I'm still just kind of watching these fellows. Nursing my beer. And waiting to see what this fella did. He is he doing anything other than just drinking at the bar, or has he said anything else to anyone else other than Eloise or the bartender?
He has not. All this is happening pretty quick. He hadn't had much time or interest in talking to anybody else. He pushes a few gold coins across the counter and nods to John Red Cloud, who sort of reluctantly accepts them because that's a lot of money. And he nods at the upward stairs and says, "First room on the right." Now, the Irishman who you observed just a few moments ago, Sean McGillicuddy, sort of casually stands up, heads toward the bar as the gentleman, possibly one of the only gentlemen in the room, but the tall drink of water begins to head up the stairs. His manservant is taking a little bit longer to move that direction, just maybe because he takes a little while to get that much mass moving, or possibly because he doesn't want to collapse the stairs while his boss is on them. Hard to say. Either way, he's a little bit behind. And Mr. McGillicuddy makes a grab for that briefcase, just as the big fella swings it back as he's about to take a step. Real quick, rattlesnake quick, the big fella turns just slightly, reaching across himself with the other hand, and grabs McGillicuddy's wrist on the way in. Squeezes. Just a casual squeeze, and you can hear a crack as bone breaks. And Mr. McGillicuddy drops to the ground, screaming his fool head off. Big fella lets go, and as if nothing at all has happened, heads up the stairs. Or he will if, none of y'all have a particular response.
As soon as the large fella goes up the stairs, Jacob will rush over to the Irishman and get down on his knee and take a hold of the arm, taking a look at it. I do have medicine.
I think you got first aid. I don't think you have medicine.
Yeah, first aid. That's right.
There is a distinction in GURPS.
Yeah. That's a 4, 5, 6. 6 out of 11.
That's a pretty good roll. You're pretty sure it's broken. What with the way the wrist is compacted together, good bit smaller than the other wrist, and it's already starting to swell up nice and purple. Meanwhile, while you're observing his damage, what is Eloise doing?
I think I will run over to Mr. McGillicuddy and I will say to him, Sean, what were you thinking?
It may take him a minute to gather his composure enough to respond.
And
Isaiah,
I'm going to,
go ahead.
and I was going to look to Mr. McCallister and say, can you take care of him while I go fetch the doctor?
I'll do my best. I ain't no surgeon, but I can probably try to set it if you
I
want.
don't think any of us are. I'm going to go see if the doc can do anything.
All right, Isaiah.
I'm gonna sort of walk over and look at how the wrist was broken. I saw how it was done, but I want to see the after effects. Maybe gauge how strong this man is.
It looks like all he did was literally squeeze straight. He didn't twist. He didn't pull. He just squeezed straight, which doesn't right jibe with what you know of how normal human strength works.
Yeah. Does Red Cloud have ice?
He does have some, yes.
I will pay him for the privilege of using the ice and borrow a bar towel and help McCallister wrap it real fast.
He shakes his head. No, you just take the ice. Samuel.
When the fella got grabbed, Samuel is wearing two visible pistols, one on his right side in a standard rig, and then the other one is also on his right side, but it's in a canted shoulder holster for left-hand draw, and his hand would have gone to his left-hand gun when he saw that fella make a move, and then when it was over as quick as that, he would have kind of pulled back and put his hands back on the table. And after the other fella heads up the stairs, then he's gonna kind of go over, and having worked with Isaiah on a few jobs before, he's gonna kind of assist him with gathering the ice and taking that stuff over to kind of help patch this fella up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
This looks like something I can set to at least reduce the inflaming.
It doesn't. It looks like something you can keep him from moving till the doctor gets here, and that's about the best you can do.
All right, that's what I'm going to do then.
I tell him he's an idiot while I'm helping wrap his wrist.
Oh, sure, and don't I know it? It's just that thing's so heavy, it's got to be full of gold or something.
Sean was your name.
My name's Sean.
Sean, I appreciate your gumption, but you're a goddamn idiot.
Oh, that's what my mother says as well.
Sam is just going to nod empathically along with these.
Well, you best just sit right still there for a couple minutes while the doctor gets here. Don't move a goddamn muscle.
I'm trying not to, because it's it hurts. Whew. Anyway, so Eloise has darted out of the saloon and down the street. Now, it ain't far to Doc Simmons, with whom Eloise has a friendly relationship, what with them talking about literary matters and the like. You head on down, storm into his office. Ain't nobody else in there because, it's the normal siesta time and sun was beating down on your head something fierce, even the few steps you had to take. He's leaned back in his chair behind his desk, fast asleep, until you bust in the door. When he wakes up, and all of a sudden, there's two very large bores at the end of a sawed-off double-barrel street howitzer headed your direction. Happily, though, he don't pull the trigger.
Doc,
Oh,
I have come here seeking your aid and assistance, and instead I am greeted with a pair of barrels pointed at my face.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Miss Eloise. I just woke up somewhat startled. Pray
I understand.
say you will forgive me.
I forgive you. And Mr. McGillicuddy has gone and gotten his wrist destroyed. So I need you to please come look at it.
What stupid thing did he do this time?
It was the strangest thing. He was reaching for a case that a stranger had brought into Red Cloud's place. And next thing I know, that the big man that was carrying the case just grabbed hold of his wrist and crushed it. It's like gravel in there.
That don't sound good at all. Let me grab my bag and I will be on the way.
Thank you, Doc. I'll walk with you.
Now, when Doc Simmons stands up, he's a graying man, probably in his 50s. Real solid built, though. Beetle-browed, dark eyebrows, even though his hair's almost gone and all gray in the back. Wearing a bolo tie on a white shirt, and he throws his black vest on and his hip length black coat over that. Gets his little black bowler hat and grabs his bag. Now, most of y'all, if you've been here any length of time, you've met Doc Simmons, and you'd have to say, until you saw the big fella, you'd have to guess that Doc Simmons was probably the most obvious prize fighter you'd seen before that, because he also has scarred knuckles and a few scars on his eyebrows that kind of give away the game. Kind of an odd pastime or even profession for a doctor, but folks do what they got to do. He grabs up his bag and he heads out the door after Eloise, and it ain't no time till they're at the saloon. However, meanwhile, back at the table, or rather the floor in front of the stairs, the rest of the three of y'all are dealing with Mr. McGillicuddy. Mr. McCallister?
Well, I'm just kind of holding the poor man's arm down so it don't move, and helping the other two apply the ice. And when that's taken care of, looks at the other two with a kind of wide eye. So that was something else.
And
Does seem strange that pretty quick for a big man, pretty strong.
Quickness isn't the problem. The problem is he crushed this man's wrist and didn't even try.
Yeah, I've seen quick big men and I've seen strong quick men, but nothing like that before.
Not somebody
Well,
I'd want to get in a scrap with.
not without a couple of those. And McCallister points at where the guns are on Samuel's person.
Indeed.
Isaiah, got anything to add before we move on to Miss Eloise coming back in the saloon?
No, I'm just kind of trying to keep an eye on McGillicuddy and the stairs or the entrance wherever the rooms are in the back of the saloon in case they come back.
All right. Well, as I said, it's not long at all before Miss Eloise and Dr. Hank Simmons slide back on into the saloon to those double doors. Dr. Simmons bangs right in like an oncoming storm, but kind of knee slides to Mr. McGillicuddy's side to take a look at the wrist. And I'm assuming y'all just make way, other than holding Mr. McGillicuddy. All right.
Yes.
Dr. Simmons takes a look at the wrist and is like, this looked like it was caught in a vice, like it was run over by a train or something, or a very heavy stagecoach. This don't look like it was squeezed by a man.
Yeah, we was thinking the same thing, but we all saw it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hand to God.
Ooh. And I thought I was a strong fella. Now I'm feeling small and kind of puny, all things considered. All right, let's get this fella up. I'm gonna need more tools than I've got. I'm sorry, Miss Eloise. I should have took you more serious. I'm gonna need to do surgery on his arm. Even then, I don't know if I can. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I resist the urge to smack McGillicuddy in the back of the head again while helping him up.
Now, I'm not sure I can save his hand anyway. That kind of damage. If there ain't nothing to connect back together, what am I going to do about it? It ain't like I've got a fancy operating theater like I might have had back east. 5 assistants and 3 people paid to watch and take notes. Anyway.
It's going to be the first time I've seen an amputation since the war. Not something I was looking forward to.
Oh no, don't take me hand. I need me hand. I can't do anything without my hand. Oh my God. Ah, he's really starting to panic. Begins to struggle a bit. What are y'all going to do about it?
How struggling is he doing? Like
he's trying to pull away with a decent bit of strength. He's a little scrawny fellow, but he's wiry and he's trying to pull away. He's not being super effective because he's only got, one arm he can move without causing himself to scream again. But he is trying to get loose.
Well, I'm Jacob's gonna give somebody with a little bit more of the persuasive quality, but they're reaching for their pistol to most likely smack this man in the back of the head to get done what needs to get done.
Gotta love that hog leg anesthesia. All right, is anybody else gonna try to talk him down or otherwise avoid the said outcome?
I will do my best to talk him down.
All righty. You can use your fast talk. You could use your you could use your sex appeal if you really want to distract him.
I just realized I have fast talk too. I could actually talk to this guy.
All right, so I am going to use sex appeal and, basically try to talk him down. And I got a 10 out of 16.
I didn't know we had a bard in the party.
You don't. You have a schoolmarm.
Yeah.
Anyway.
A schoolmarm that used to do other things. So.
All right. Anywho. So you have definitely got his attention. His eyes get a little wide and he simmers down a bit. And he's like, Miss Eloise, don't let him take my hand. What am I going to do with just one hand?
Well, you'll figure it out. That's the key. I mean, I knew a fellow with just one hand once. He could do all the things. It was amazing. And I stopped myself right before I revealed too much.
Very well. Very well. So she is able to get him calmed enough for y'all to get him out of the saloon, down the street, the docks. When you get him there and get him on the table, it is shortly thereafter that the doc has him feeling real peaceful with a nice shot of poppy juice. So, is there you are in the doctor's office as McGillicuddy is fading out. Y'all gonna stay and watch, step out and have a conversation, have the conversation right there since McGillicuddy's, well, hurt well out of it anyway.
Is the doc got things handled?
Yeah, now that he's got McGillicuddy sedated, getting him strapped down super easy. And once he's strapped down, then he can take a look and see if he can do anything other than cut the hand off.
Okay.
McCallister looks at the others and says, "This ain't something I really want to watch again," and takes a step out.
Me neither. I'm going out too.
I make sure the doc doesn't need any assistance, and then once he tells me he doesn't, I go outside as well.
Sam will
I will
whisper
follow these men folk.
a little sort of not quite a prayer, but under his breath, he's just going to say, "Papa Laba," and just step out of the room as he heads out.
Justina, what was the last thing you said? I didn't catch it.
Oh, I was going to follow the men folk out because Eloise has absolutely no interest in watching an amputation.
And you cannot be blamed. Now, luckily, Dr. Simmons does have an assistant who he wakes up and comes and helps him. And he does say, greatly appreciate all y'all's help. Y'all can head on now. We got it from here. So you step out into the dusty street.
As soon as McCallister gets out to the street, he leans back against the wall and raises his mask up again, showing off that gruesome scarring on the right side of his face, to light up a cigarette and just keep their head down so they don't have to see too much of the damage that was done to them. And takes a long drag out of it. Yeah, something like that. I'd rather just take a bullet to the head myself.
The match you use to light your hand-rolled cigarette, you flick it away into the street. Wind catches it. It just kind of rolls a little old ways. Dust flicking over it. Sun is beating down, hot out here. It's still not too long after the hottest part of the day. Again, it ain't as hot as some folks might have thought it was, but it's hot. It's a good thing you got your hat to keep the sun off your face. Unfortunately, Miss Eloise, when she steps out, her hat isn't as helpful, even if she's got it on. So, there the four of you are standing outside the doctor's office.
So I suppose we're going to discuss the fact that none of that seemed natural.
Real tempted to go to that place that they're building outside of town and take a look.
Do any of the buildings nearby have kind of like covered walkways in front of them?
They do. Yeah, no, a couple of the, like the bank 2 doors down, and there's a couple other buildings like the general store definitely has a covered porch. You walk up on it and it's got seats and everything.
Sam's going to kind of nod towards the general store and say, "Let's say we step in the shade a little bit, talk more about this."
I think it's a good idea.
I am amendable to this.
So, Dixie, what you thinking about all this?
I'm thinking something weird's going on, and I don't like it. I put a lot
Yeah,
of work into this town.
yeah, I'm right in mind of what you were thinking before. Rich fellow like that wanting to stay in a, I'm not going to say it's the shabbiest place I've ever seen, but definitely not something that somebody like that would take part in.
Not in the slightest.
How far from how far are we from the saloon?
Probably about the equivalent of 2 city blocks, maybe 10, 12 buildings down.
Okay.
The main street is pretty much where everything in town is. And for a town of 2,000 people, buildings are pretty close together.
I'm just going to keep kind of glancing down that way just to see if anybody I don't recognize goes in or out while we're standing here talking.
They don't seem to. Like I said before, the stagecoaches already took off up to the house on the edge of the ridge above the gulch.
Besides our fine lady folk here, Miss Eloise, I'm not keen on either your names. Jacob is mine.
Isaiah.
Samuel, most folks just call me Sam.
Isaiah, Sam, nice to meet you both in these interesting predicament. You lived here long?
Couple years.
Come and go.
I'm new around these parts, so I'm not quite sure of the exact position this town's in, but seems mighty interesting so far.
It's a lively town, as are towns like this that spring up around mine.
How many miners you think you got around here? Everybody work down there, or just a might bit?
Good portion of the town, unless they're working one of the establishments in town. Everybody's
Whoever
looking to
wants
get rich.
Whoever wants to get a more exact, not exact, but a more clear account can roll area knowledge if they like.
No.
I got a 10 out of 11.
10 out of 11's decent. You get it.
9 out of 10.
But I'll get to that. What do you get?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Each of y'all made it by 1, so you get a certain amount. Christopher, do you have area knowledge?
No, I failed.
Sam is rather sure that there's only 2 people in town because I rolled a 16. So
all right. Well, Jacob and Eloise, it's funny that Jacob should ask y'all, thinking, well, they live here, they'll know more than me. But when he thinks back, he realizes, looking around, yeah, no, a good portion of the folk here are miners, but maybe a quarter of them, with a quarter of them being railroad workers, and then you got the townsfolk for like maybe another quarter, and then ranchers for the last bit. Same thing Eloise knows. She knows the town even better, though. So she knows that while the split between the jobs is about a quarter, it's probably only like 6 people who own it all. And Sir Reginald Gwill is one of them. And he seems to have already had interest in all 3 of the major industries of the town. And who knows but what he may own some of the buildings in town as well.
Well, I'm not quite sure of each of your ideas on this, other than Isaiah's, of course. but this looks like something that people like us might want to be a little bit more interested in.
I'm wondering if maybe we shouldn't ask some folk we know here in town, see if they know a little bit more about what this fella might be up to.
Too many times I've come to a town like this, and after someone like that shows up, they're the ones that own the whole town, which by my reckoning ain't right.
True enough. Now,
You guys ride together? You guys know each other at all?
we've done some work together in the area.
Jobs one man couldn't handle on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob looks a little interested. This goes, well, what kind of work?
Finding things, finding people, putting people on the ground.
Bounty hunters.
More
Troubleshooter. We regulate the area.
not a lot of law around here, and sometimes those that got more power like to push around those that don't.
Well, if it was anyone,
To the Sam.
if it was anyone else, I'd be a little bit more concerned. But considering you and I are like-minded, it seems. And Eloise, what you do around these parts?
Say again, sorry.
I said, what do you do around these parts? I know the wind's a
I
bit.
teach school, and yeah, I teach school, and I have been known to attend church. That's what I do.
Round about that time, y'all all hear the jangling of spurs as a fella is walking down the street in just brazen defiance of the high burning sun. His hat pulled low over his face, that silver star on his left lapel. Now, the silver star has seen better days. It's a little warped, like it's been melted at some point, or just beaten out of shape, like it might have been hit by bullets. Hard to say, but it's a little tilted to one side and kind of twisted a little, but it's still very recognizably a five-pointed Marshall star. And he saunters on up and settles himself, leaning against the post up to the porch. The fella, he looks like he knows how to handle himself well enough, but he's also got that cocky look on his face that suggests he has no idea what this town is really like. Looks like the rich folks have convinced some poor new fella to be Marshall again.
How long has he been Marshall?
Oh, I'd say you have no idea. It's the first time you've seen him, probably today.
Okay, so he'll be dead by the end of the day. Got it.
Quite possibly. But as he opens his mouth to speak, we're going to go ahead and take our halfway break.
Sound like a plan.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to our actual play of GURPS, Terror at Bone Gulch. I just wanted to remind everyone that this actual play is for charity. Please give as much as you can, as generously as you can. Tell your friends, get them to watch it, get them to give. In addition, I do want to give a little caveat. Any slurs or insensitivity toward any persons of color or Native Americans or any other group is solely in character, as we do not feel it is appropriate to whitewash the behaviors of the time. None of us hold these views. We abhor them. And any insensitivity or vileness is our characters or entirely unintentional. And we heartily apologize. As our group has just been approached by the newest marshal of the town, as they sit on the front porch of the general store under the overhang out of the sun. This slightly fancy fellow with his jangling spurs and his melted looking, perhaps warped martial star walked up and leaned against the post. He is a Caucasian gentleman, no obvious clear ethnicities. And then, of course, he opens his mouth and he says, well, now, what are all y'all folk doing out here in the sun?
Jacob will kind of eye him once over and just kind of looks up at him and says, getting out of it at the moment.
Right. But, you know, you'd be inside and having a nice cold drink. Here you are out on the porch.
I just stare through him.
Would you like to roll an intimidation?
I have intimidate too.
Yes, you do.
I critted. I rolled a 4.
Yeah. He turns, as the phrase is, a wider shade of pale. Kind of takes one step back and his hand looks like it might be thinking of moving toward the gun, and then he thinks better of it. Well, all right. Sorry to have bothered you folks. Y'all have a good day and keep out of trouble, you hear?
I think you should be thinking about that little statement before we do.
Yeah, right.
What's your name, Marshall?
Miles Taggart.
Well, I'll remember that in my prayers. I hope you have better luck than your predecessor.
What do you mean?
I am then going to turn to Samuel and say, would you look here? They didn't even tell him what happened to the last guy.
I think Miss Eloise is trying to say that marshals don't survive long in this town.
Oh, well, how about that? Well, thank y'all for your kindness and your trying to, warn me of the dangers of my position, but there's got to be a law around, and I took the job, so I'll do my best. Y'all keep your nose clean, you hear? And he kind of starts to sidle away, hoping that the conversation is over, because he is not happy.
As he's walking away, without turning to look back at him, Jacob says, people make the law there, Sheriff. keep walking?
Yeah. Marshal, not sheriff. Sheriff would be the county. I just have the town. But all right, you're right. Of course.
If I had a penny, I'd show you just how much I cared about the difference.
From that point, he just turns and tries to pay y'all no further mind as he walks on, trying to get that confident strut back, but he doesn't quite make it.
Well, Dixie, that was more fun than I've had in quite a while. I appreciate it.
Marshals around here are like mayflies, same lifespan and same general usefulness.
Lost count of how many we've had this year alone.
Nichols says he won't make it through the end of the day.
I'd take that bet, but I don't want to lose a nickel.
Yeah, just my luck. He'll survive and then die at 12:02.
Well, so what are we going to do about this fella and his extra strong friend with the briefcase?
It strikes me as mighty odd that somebody will walk in with doubloons to throw around. It's not something I've seen before. I've seen a lot of rich folk, but no one that just throws around gold coins for a place like that. My reckoning is that perhaps when it's a bit cooler, a bit darker, you folks wouldn't mind joining me up checking out this new residence of his.
That might be worth doing. I'm just kind of curious as to what he's doing in that saloon up the street. I mean, haven't seen anybody else go in or out. Doesn't seem like he's meeting anybody. So I'm just wondering what he is doing.
Considering what he did to your Irish friend, I don't know if I want to be sneaking around inside his room.
Oh, I don't either, but I'm just quite curious about why he'd be there. I'm wondering if now, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong. The Colonel lives here in town, Colonel Kendall.
He lives near town.
Near
He is
town.
Colonel Kendall is legitimately a desert hermit. And for those who may not have looked it up, he does in fact look like Sir Alec Guinness. He just dresses a mite different, what with the different genre and all. He is a he mustered out as a colonel, but during the Civil War, he actually was brevetted all the way to general and had command of quite a large unit of Buffalo soldiers.
I'm wondering if my old commander lives not too far from here. And I'm wondering if he might know, or if anybody else knows, if somebody else in town might have a little bit more information about this fellow.
What was your commander's name?
Colonel Kendall.
Do I know of this colonel?
Well, that's entirely possible. Why don't you make me a roll of your soldier skill? That could represent your ability to recall things from your time of service.
I rolled 2 below maximum on 3 dice, so that's a no.
At least it's not a critical failure, so I'm not going to lie to you. You, in fact, never heard of this fellow. Must have been completely different units, other side of the war. I mean, not the other side. He was on the Union side, but the other side of the theater.
Listen, you boys are a little bit more knowledgeable about this area, so I'll follow your lead.
Kendall's a good man.
Surprised he, surprised
he knows
didn't say that,
things.
Dixie.
He's not too far out either. We could probably go there first and then go and see what the hell they're doing on that hill.
Well, yeah, we could ride out that way. Sam's going to kind of look over. And what about you, Miss Eloise?
Well, I would like to accompany you gentlemen, but I would like to ask some questions of. Okay, so Jack, do I know if John Red Cloud has any ladies that take care of the rooms, that clean the place, that sort of thing?
He does not. One of the interesting things about his establishment is it does not have any ladies working there at all in any capacity. There are no soiled doves working for him. He does not have waitresses. He does most of the serving himself, and he has a couple of fellas come in to clean.
All right, then I guess we'll go to Colonel Kempton's.
All right. Now, Isaiah is completely right. It's not that far, but it is far enough that y'all are going to want to, saddle up your horses and head on out rather than trying to walk your way through the desert to his very humble domicile. So,
I make sure to grab a bottle of his favorite whiskey and make sure all my water and everyone else's water is topped up.
good call. Because even if you're just going to shoot the desert, you can't risk running out of water. All righty. Y'all head out that way. And it ain't far, but it's probably round about 4:30 in the afternoon by the time y'all get there. Just because the terrain's rocky and you're careful not to cause your horses too much distress. You pull rein in front of a little cabin, I guess, made of stacked rocks. It's the kind of place you'd actually expect to see maybe on the coast of Scotland with a, with stacked stones and wattle and daub in between them with a thatch roof. Like, he built the place himself. It's pretty decent, but it's not adobe or anything you'd expect to find in the region. Other than the stones themselves, the way the stones are stacked isn't like the locals. And as you're riding up, it becomes really obvious that the reason he picked this place inside an arroyo, a canyon, is because horses' hooves cause a big echo all the way down it. And by the time you're halfway down the canyon, he's out on his front porch smoking a pipe. With a Henry rifle in his lap.
Sam will kind of tip his hat. Colonel? We just seen some strange things in town and thought maybe you might be able to help us out with maybe knowing about somebody placed in local society.
Well, Mr. Fawcett, I may be able to, but I wonder, will it be any stranger than the sight of seeing the four of you ride up to my little shack all at the same time?
Might not be.
That begs a story or two, I think. Why don't y'all go ahead and tie the horses up, come on inside where it's nice and cool. We'll have a drink and we'll have a little chat.
Jacob will kind of follow up on the rear. Get off his horse. And there seems to be a bit of a connection between him and the steed he rides around on. And as he climbs off the horse, there's a bit of a pat on the shoulder, and then the two of them put their heads together for a moment before Jacob ties the horse up on a hitch. And
Sam
that's when you notice that the back right flank has scarring quite similar to the face of Jacob.
Sam is gonna dismount and hitch up his horse, and he's gonna kind of think a moment about what's gone on this day, and he keeps his rifle in a rifle scabbard, and then opposite his lariat he's got his sawed-off shotgun, and he's going to think about for a second about grabbing it, and then kind of think better of it and kind of leave it where it is as he hitches up his horse and pats his horse on the side, and then heads on in.
Eloise?
Yeah, she's going to hitch.
Yeah.
Sorry. Isaiah goes over and ties up Eloise's horse for her and then helps her down.
Thank you, Isaiah.
And then ties his horse up and checks everyone else's and then waits to go inside. He's last.
Very good. You make your way in, and it becomes fairly evident fairly quickly that the inside's bigger than the outside, not because of any strange magic, but because the cabin is built right up against the cliff face and a cave behind it, which explains why it's nice and cool inside as the cold air comes up from the underground below. Nicely circulated. He leads y'all further in to a nice, good-sized table. It's mostly dark, but there's some light coming in from some openings at the top of the building. And he settles down and sets his pipe to the side and sets his rifle to the side. Over near the rifle, you do see a very, very, very finely made saber. The interesting thing about it is it seems to be somewhere halfway between a cavalry saber and a German dueling saber. Little straighter than a cavalry saber, still good from horseback, but maybe more suited to fine fencing than just hacking away. Well, y'all go ahead and take your seats, if you would. I have clean water, and I have whiskey. Not too much of it left, unfortunately. I do have a little beer left over. What can I get y'all?
I just set the bottle of whiskey on the table. And set back.
Oh, right then. Then I guess what we'll be getting first is shot glasses. I'll be right back. He walks over to a bureau, probably the only decent piece of furniture in the place, something that he had shipped in with him. Most of the stuff is rough and handmade, like he put it together himself. But this particular curio cabinet or bureau even has glass in the front, and he opens it up and pulls out 5 glass, leaded glass shot glasses, leaded crystal, and brings them over and sets them on the table. Isaiah, if you do the honors, it's your bottle.
Yes, sir.
As
Four.
he's doing that, Sam's gonna put, he takes off his hat, and just out of years of habit, he's gonna kind of stand off near the colonel as he returns to the table, kind of in the position where a higher ranking non-com would stand in relation to the colonel. So he just kind of.
Mr. Fawcett, we're not in the army anymore. Sit down.
Sorry, Colonel, have it.
I know.
And then he'll sit down.
Now,
As Jacob enters, he tips his hat and he says, "Colonel, nice to meet you, Jacob McCallister."
nice to meet you as well. My name is Benjamin Obadiah Wanforth Kendall, but you can just call me Ben.
All right, Ben.
Miss Eloise, fancy seeing you this far out.
It has been a day of extraordinary events, Colonel. It's
Yeah.
good to see you again.
Likewise. Mr. McCallister, would you do me the favor of taking your hat off, please? We're indoors.
Of course, my apologies. My long time out on the road makes me forget sometimes proper etiquette.
It's all right. I didn't have to tell you more than once. We're doing fine. So, who wants to tell me what all this is about, bringing all 4 of y'all out this far into the desert to an old man's house to disturb his peace?
Sam's gonna kind of look to Eloise and say, "Well, I think Miss Eloise probably be well situated to tell the tale."
Well, a gentleman arrived in town, a foreigner named Sir Reginald, and he had with him a very large man carrying a very heavy satchel. And fortunately, Sean McGillicuddy tried to grab the satchel. The large man reached around, grabbed him by his wrist like so, and with a simple squeeze reduced the insides of his wrist to nothing but gravel. The doc is probably going to have to amputate it.
Ben leans forward, very intent all of a sudden, with, I won't say shadows dancing behind his eyes, but definitely memories. Something has been triggered there.
Seems like, Colonel, this fella's got a place, he says, outside of town, and he's up to something, it seems.
Place outside of town. This place, is it the new mansion on the hill?
Yes.
So we're talking about Sir Reginald Gwill.
Yes, sir.
Now, he's only the second person you've heard pronounce that double L at the end that way. I don't think any of you actually have linguistics enough to to recognize why that would be. I have heard the name before some years back. If normal patterns and standards are to be expected, this young fellow, was he young?
Yes.
Would have to be the grandson of the one I heard tell of. But I'm not entirely sure that normal standards do apply. I'm also not sure how much the four of you are likely to believe of what I might have to say.
Now, quick question. I don't have linguistics, and I'm sure it's not the same thing, but I do have language talent. So I don't know if that would make a difference.
No, well, sort of. Okay. What I will say is with language talent, you have the ear definitely to recognize that it's very different and that the two of them are pronouncing it the same way. But without the training, you can't really identify why, because you're not from a place where you would have heard it that way.
That makes sense. Got it.
Colonel, you seem familiar with this man, or his family at least. What can you tell us about them?
That depends on a number of factors. Isaiah.
Yes, sir.
Can you give me, as I know best, your skills of observation compared to the others, yours and Samuel's? I want each of you independently to give me a description of the most salient features of this gentleman. What would you think is the thing that most stood out to you?
I'm going to make an IQ-based perception roll to recall everything that I had observed. Success by 3.
One, very pale skin, pretty much untouched by the sun. 2, you noticed, you didn't remember noticing at the time, but very often when you're concentrating, you can remember details that weren't significant to you at that moment when you're a trained observer. You realize that his eyes were a deep green and that his cravat, while it looked black in the saloon, was probably also a very deep green. His clothing was extraordinarily expensive. Probably the most expensive you've seen out here, even on a high-rolling gambler or one of the other few rich people in town. And he moved with utter self-assurance. And as a military man, he moved like someone who knew how to fight as well, probably a number of different ways. Would you like to make a similar roll?
I rolled 2 under, and I will say that just myself, one of the things that stood out to me that I will make sure I relay was the kind of the silver snake head on the cane.
Right. Which bits do you relay, Isaiah? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it.
I tell him everything. This man has never done me anything but good. Probably patched me up a time or two. So I have utmost respect for him. And of course, during the war, he didn't kill me. So
always a bonus. So you'd say, fellas, probably a little more, not a whole lot more than 6 foot, slightly taller than myself. The hair, long and black,
Mm-hmm.
And green eyes, you say, with a
There,
silver snakehead cane.
there was something wrong
Yes,
with
sir.
him.
Something wrong with him. What do you mean, Isaiah?
Something not natural.
Indeed.
He certainly
Was-
moved like he knew his way around a fight.
Right. Well, he would, wouldn't he? Was there a heraldic symbol, a badge on his stagecoach? Did any of you happen to see that?
I did. And yes, it was a serpent on a shield, looked like.
Well, it's definitely the right family. That is their coat of arms. He comes from a Welsh family. What did his voice sound like?
Like he owned everything.
Sounded foreign.
Right. Rather would, wouldn't it?
Like he didn't care about other people, no matter what. Like they were lesser than him.
Well, that's probably because he doesn't think they are people, not the way he is. When you live
Big-
long enough, or exist long enough, I should say, perhaps, you start to think of folks who don't live quite as long as expendable. After all, what are they losing? 60, 70 years?
The big fella that he had with him, he seemed more subservient than a regular servant, if you know what I mean.
I do. The sort of thing you'd have observed in the plantation house back in the day.
Yes, sir.
Was it the kind who were happy to be indoors, or
He seemed sort of, I guess, part and parcel of his fate, if you will.
I've seen that look. Usually on a woman who won't leave a man who beats her. That was the look he gave, that big fella.
that exact look? The big fella, scarred like a prize fighter,
Yes, sir.
looked very foreign, a little swarthy.
Yes.
How do you know this, Colonel?
Yeah, Colonel, it strikes me as if you're driving at something you're already there.
I'm trying for confirmation because I don't want to make an accusation and be wrong, because a lot of people could get badly hurt. And I don't want to make an accusation and be right, because if I send you out to do anything about it, somebody's going to get hurt. And it probably ain't going to be him. My grandfather, back in England, had a run-in with a fella named Sir Reginald Guelph in a rundown castle on the border of Wales. He was the only one of 6 men to come back alive. They weren't even able to bring the bodies back, because in order to prevent foul things from happening, they made sure to burn them all. right on the spot. I'm guessing y'all don't have any idea what I'm getting at, do you?
No, sir, I can't say I do.
Colonel. So being that Sam was kind of raised with some kind of voodoo background from his grandmother, little Louisiana voodoo.
Yeah, I was about to say, remind me where Samuel's from originally.
Louisiana.
What part?
From he would have been from kind of central, no, more South Louisiana, so probably close to New Orleans, not in New Orleans, but outside New Orleans.
Very good. Give me an occult roll, please.
Yes. That would be made it by 3.
Based on your background and what he's talking about some kind of creature that just looks human. There's a number of different kinds it could be, though. It could be an in-betweener. It could be Rougarou. It could be it could be one of the undead. Now, you've heard tell that some folks these days are calling it a word from Eastern Europe because of a set of stories and books about some Ruthven fella. They're calling it vampire.
Colonel, you saying this fella's supernatural?
I'm saying that if it's the same fella, and I think it is, that he has lived for at least 500 years by drinking the blood of mortal men.
Jacob from the door, because they were kind of watching out just in case that Marshall decided to come after them. Lets out a loud laugh. 500 years old, you say? That's that ain't something I've heard before. You serious?
I'm afraid I am deadly serious. There are things, more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy, I assure you. And I'm
not one to believe in God, but I seen the devil and he looks just like you and me. I don't believe in any of that mumbo jumbo.
But that's the thing. The devil does look just like you and me. That's how he gets along. And I'm not saying I believe in God either. I saw too much on the battlefield to be sure. But you don't have to believe in God to believe in monsters when you've seen them. Now, they may look just like you and me, but a normal man doesn't rip somebody's throat out with their teeth and drink the blood. And I have seen it with my own eyes.
It would make a lot of sense as to how that fella crushed Sean's wrist like that.
It would. But here's the thing about that. He's just the servant. He's not near as strong as his master.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
So at this point, Jacob is kind of like eyeing everyone. Like he understands that the colonel and Samuel are kind of in on this, it seems, but eyeing over at Eloise and Isaiah, like, are you guys hearing what I'm hearing?
I am.
Colonel's never lied to me before.
Make it a practice never to lie. You start lying, then no one believes you when it's important. Now, I don't expect you to believe what I'm telling you either, unless you've seen things with your own eyes. But let's just say I'm wrong. Nonetheless, you're still dealing with a very large, very strong man who can crush someone's wrist in their bare hands. And you should probably assume that they're wearing some kind of armor. Maybe you should assume that I don't know what is the word that it would use for that he's some sort of abnormality and has abilities that normal men do not possess. Does that help you make sense of it? It doesn't have to be supernatural to be evil.
That I agree with, but where I come from, no matter how big you are, a shot in the head will take you out just as quick.
I assure you, it will not.
Well, it does.
For the servant, you got to take the heart out of the body. For the master, blamed if I know for sure. We tried a number of things. The traditional methods did not seem entirely efficacious. Maybe we did them in the wrong order. Maybe we didn't do them the right way. Maybe, I don't know. But a stake through the heart, made of wood or of iron, take the head off, burn it all, holy water on the ashes if you believe that sort of thing. One of the big problems is how you're going to get to him without endangering other people. Assuming you choose to.
What do you suppose he's doing here of all places?
I don't know. And that's what worries me the most. Normally, people like him, if we can use the word people, normally people like him like to stay either in the countryside where they can do whatever they want because everyone's already scared of them, or in a big city where they won't get noticed. Come out here, bright sun of the desert, less shadows to hide in, just a few people. What he's gonna do is gonna get noticed, and he has to know that. And even if the white man here doesn't believe what he is, somebody like Samuel or Isaiah comes along, or somebody who's seen it, or one of the Mexican fellas who's seen somebody bent backward over an altar and their heart ripped out in order to feed a hungry God. He'll attract attention here, which means whatever he wants here, it's important to him. It's more important than the risk to himself.
The house.
Maybe. Might be something important about the house.
It's built over the gulch.
Yep. Maybe. I don't know. What I do know is whatever's so important to him that he's wanting to risk this much, we need to figure out what that is before we take any sort of action, because we don't want to play into his hands. Now, I know this is going to be hard because some bad things are probably going to happen. But we need to find out.
Is there any way to ward? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is there any way to ward this thing off? Keep it away from us?
The rumors said there were. What we tried didn't work. Garlic didn't do anything.
McCallister at this point is shaking his head and just kind of eyeing everyone, totally convinced that these new friends of his are out of their gourd, and says, Colonel, I appreciate your time and your hospitality. I need to, I'm gonna get some air. Just kind of like puts their hat back on and takes a step out.
Mm-hmm.
Eloise is going to follow him.
Okay.
Mr. McCallister,
Yes, Miss Eloise.
I am not prone to believe what the colonel is saying on the face of it, but one of the most intelligent men that I know said that man's that poor Sean McGillicuddy's wrist looked like a train had run over.
Some men are stronger than others. I've seen men do some crazy things. I ain't gonna
Well,
believe
one
that.
time I saw a man roll up a frying pan at a fair, but I don't think this is the same thing. I mean, you saw that wrist.
Yeah, I saw the wrist, but that doesn't make me think that this is some 500-year-old like bloodsucker or some such. That's crazy talk.
Well, if the colonel is crazy, and I'm actually kind of leaning your direction, if he is, even if he's crazy, he knows these people. He knew them without us telling him about them overmuch.
I've seen men have crazy ideas, but this one takes the cake.
Yes, it really does.
You sure he didn't take a grape shot to the side of the head during the war? Because that's where I would go with it.
Well, I don't know. It's just we need to figure out what is going on here. I think that's an appropriate response, don't you, Mr. McCallister? It's rational.
If this man is dangerous, then there's things we can do to try to stave him off. But talking about garlic and behead and burning the body, it seemed. Listen, I'm a wanted man in some places, but I ain't gonna go out like that, going in and trying to burn somebody and most likely getting the entire town after me for some sort of devil worship or some such.
And Eloise just sort of ponders and crosses her arms, knitting her brow.
Meanwhile, back inside the nice little stone cabin in the cave behind, Isaiah, Samuel, the hard part, other than convincing Mr. McCallister of the truth, is going to be taking the time to find out what's really going on while bad things are happening that you can't necessarily stop.
Well, I think Mr. McCallister's the kind that's going to have to see before he believes, but he's a military man, so I suspect he'd be open to the idea of gathering intelligence, figuring out more of what's going on. And unfortunately, that sometimes means that things are going to happen that we can't stop.
That's true. Are you all prepared to resist the understandable urge to heroics? Sometimes it's the hardest thing we can do.
Yes, sir. It's not what I'd prefer to do, but sometimes it's necessary.
Isaiah?
Just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
I hear you, but you're going to need to be steadfast, and you're going to need to be willing to think on your feet as well. I may not be there every time. I may not be there when things get crazy. And you're going to have to make some of these decisions yourself. Isaiah, you are more than capable of doing that. And over the years, I have come to trust your judgment. I know why you were where we found you. And there's no shame in it. You keep your instinct. You do what's right. But you think long term, just like you did when you were trying to take care of your boys. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, y'all are going to need to remember this. If there's something you believe in, if there's a God or something that you believe in strong enough and you have a symbol of it, then showing it to this creature might keep it away. It's not going to help hung on the wall. It's not going to help hanging over the door. You got to hold it in your hands and you have got to believe. And that can be hard when that thing's coming for you. You also got to remember, everything else aside, as vile as this thing is, he's still a gentleman and will conduct himself as such. That could be of value.
Samuel's going to reach into the pocket of his vest while the colonel's speaking and pull out a small little bottle of rum and just kind of clutch it a little bit as he's speaking.
Now, as I said, we believe the only way to kill him is to stake him to the ground with wood or iron and cut the head off. But silver can slow him down. A silver weapon, silver bullets, if you can make them. They ain't readily available, though, so sometimes convincing a smith or someone to pour them for you can be a little difficult. But do what you can. And when it comes time to actually fight him, well, I'll be along with you. And he reaches over and picks up the saber, pulls it from the sheath to show that the entire thing is plated silver.
I think we can arrange something, Colonel.
Very good. Did you know that there were these things on both sides during the war? Taking advantage of the carnage to feed without getting caught?
Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me one bit.
We'll talk about a group of people I know that were involved in fighting them a bit later after y'all have looked into some things. But you be careful, you hear? Won't
Yes,
do
sir.
anybody any good, y'all get killed. I can't handle them by myself. I'm an old man.
Yes, sir. We'll just keep our eyes peeled for now and prepare.
Yeah. You tell Mr. McCallister. You don't know what it is either. But he's dangerous, so y'all need to look into it. You just watch out for him. Don't let him get caught by surprise. Understand this thing can mess with your head. And if anybody gets bit, you bring them back here right away. You don't let them wander off by themselves. And if anybody dies after getting bit, you take that head off and you burn that body, and you do it per quick. If it goes in the ground, it's coming out like him.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
Sam is a, in his years after the war, is an avid reader, and he actually carries a couple of copies of both some of the more famous and the more obscure works of Dumas and in his saddlebags. But how much chance is there that he's heard of this? Any stories related to this vampire thing?
Well, let me take a quick look. Do you have any literature or
Let me see.
literature or it's not pop culture, it's current affairs entertainment, I guess, at this point.
Yes.
Which one? Oh, you're agreeing that that's the right skill? Yeah, okay.
The closest thing I would have would be, the closest thing I have is American history. So
Yeah, it wouldn't come up in that because
Yeah. no,
they don't put things like that in history books for some reason.
no, not usually.
And when they do, people are like, "You're insane," and they get rid of you, and they get rid of the book. And Montague Summers does not count as history for most people.
Yes.
Neither does John Polidori, and this is several years before Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yes.
So,
Well, Sam's going to kind of nod to the colonel and kind of head for the door, put his hat back on and step outside. And he's going to kind of head towards his horse, and assuming that Eloise and McCallister are still out front, he's going to kind of look over and say, that man in there, he got me out of more scrapes than I can count. And I know what he says sounds pretty outlandish, but I think one way or the other, whatever or whoever this fella is, our best bet right now is to gather some intelligence, find out more about who he is, what he's up to.
I don't agree with much of what I've been hearing, but that last part makes a lot of sense.
I shake the colonel's hand, tilt my head to him, and then exit to join everyone else.
Isaiah,
Yes, sir.
be careful. You do not have to expiate your sins in death this way.
We'll just leave that up to God.
Fair enough.
I think if we do gather information on this fellow, we need to do our best not to tip our hand. See what we can do without giving away that we're looking into him. He, whether or not he's something otherworldly, he's a rich man, and rich men can hire a lot of iron.
I say we go to his little house outside of town and poke around.
Well, I think that might not be a bad idea, but I would say let's head back into town and maybe we can see where he's at and kind of regroup a little bit and know whether or not he's still in town or if he's headed home.
As far as I know, he paid for more than one night. So I'm guessing that we were going to have some time to check out the.
I just like to get a handle on his location if we can, in case he's up to something crafty and checking himself out a room
Place he,
while he does other
built.
things.
Are there flowers and sage out here on the canyon?
Are there what and sage?
Flowers, just wildflowers, that kind of thing.
Some, yes, because the canyon does tend to channel what little available groundwater there is when it rains, which it does on occasion.
I'm going to collect some of
there
them.
are some wildflowers. The brightest wildflowers are actually on cacti.
Well, I'm just getting something, so there's a plausible explanation for why we were outside of town.
Okay. There is definitely a patch of gatherable sage.
Okay.
By this point, what time of day is it?
You're looking at long about 6:30 or 7. So the sun's going to be going down real soonish. Because as I said, it's early spring, March.
So I don't want to get you boys riled up too much, but you sure it's safe to leave your colonel there all alone? I know
He'll be
people
all
like,
right.
I know people like him forget they left the stove on, per se,
You'll be all right.
You hear from the house, you hear the very distinct sound of a bar dropping into place, blocking the door. You hear a chink from somewhere near the top of the cabin, and what little light was coming from the candles inside is now blocked off. And
Jacob kind of just shakes his head and looks at the others. I don't know about this, boys. I just met you today, and this is probably the wildest thing I've ever heard.
Well, there's all sorts of strange things in this world, and I think at this point, maybe we just stick to what we know. This fella's up to something. We want to know what he's up to. We see what we can figure out.
Around about this time, right in the middle of you talking, the horses whinny. They seem nervous.
I'm
gonna scan the area.
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
I'm also doing that.
And as I do, I'm gonna kind of reach up and pull my shotgun, my little sawed-off shotgun out, and just kind of start scanning the area.
Yeah, everybody
That's
go ahead.
fine.
And make observation.
That's by 9.
You beat your observation by 9?
Yeah.
I did a 5 out of 12.
Beat yours by 7. Good.
I beat mine by 3.
All right, we're going downhill. Miss Eloise, your perception
9.
You beat it by
So
9?
13. Yeah, no, I beat it by 4.
You beat it by 4. All right. So in order from noticing least to noticing most, we will go Samuel, Eloise, Jacob, and then Isaiah. All right. So Samuel, you notice that it has grown quite dim. You're in a canyon, so the direct light of the sun's been blocked off for some time. And you notice a shadow passing over the animals. Can't quite make out what it is. Eloise, you notice that there's a smell in the air. Now, each of you notices what the others below you noticed in addition to what I give you, okay? Miss Eloise notices that there's a faint smell in the air of copper, kind of wafting down from above. Jacob, There is, in addition to those things, the tiniest smell of cordite, not cordite, black powder in the air. Isaiah, you notice all those things. You also notice that the shape of the shadow is that of a bat, but probably 2 or 3 times the size of a bat you would normally find in this region. And when you look up, as people all too rarely actually do, it's not natural for humans to look up, but as a trained outdoorsman, you're more likely to. You don't see anything casting the shadow.
Yay.
Jacob is immediately pulling out their pistol and moving towards the horses.
I am going to follow suit because that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Eloise, what are you doing?
Following those men with all their guns. I'm not going to stand here, just wait.
Make sure she
That is
actually
why
gets
you
on
are-
her horse.
And that is why you, while you are a horror game heroine, you are not a horror movie heroine.
As we kind of move around with my sawed-off shotgun in my right hand, Sam is going to reach over to his cross-draw pistol, kind of spin it around and hand it butt first to Eloise.
She's going to take it.
Eloise, are you putting on a show of not knowing what to do with it, or you?
I'm keeping it. I'm not going to show that I know what to do with it very much. So.
But you're not, pretending to fumble it or anything.
I'm not pretending to fumble it. Now, Jacob knows about the black powder smell, right?
Jacob and everyone who got higher than Jacob.
Okay. All
So Jacob and
Isaiah
I-
Jacob know about that.
Right.
Okay. Cool.
The other 3 of you, go ahead and make an observation check. Not you. The observation is aimed at you, Justina.
I got a 9
By 4.
again
No.
out
sorry,
of 13. So the
Eloise
difference is
doesn't
3.
have to roll because they are observing
Oh,
something
sorry.
about Eloise. And I asked you if you were pretending, and you're not.
I got
So I
an
made it.
11 out of 12.
Okay, so 1.
Made it by 2.
All of you get just enough. You notice she's not showing off or anything, but she's definitely familiar with firearms,
That's a fine woman.
right? Yeah, half the women you'd meet in town would have been like holding the butt end wrong, and she just, all right, I'm ready. Okay.
Do I sense where the smell of the black powder is coming from?
It's really hard to tell because here you are down in the canyon, and when you're in the canyon, you've got so many cross currents because you got the wind coming up out of the caves, you got the wind coming across the top, you got the wind coming in the front and curling around. It's almost impossible to localize a scent under those conditions.
Now, with my experience with explosives and with firearms, can I tell the difference between the smells?
Generally, yes. Black powder and white powder, which they are already using, not cordite, but they are using white powder, and TNT, for instance, all smell very different.
So this would be from a gun, not from an explosive.
Right. It would be from a gun, and it would be from an older model gun.
An older model.
Like it might be a cap and ball revolver or a muzzle loader or like that, not a modern revolver or a repeating rifle or anything.
Somebody just got into Revolutionary War fight or something else is going on around here.
Isaiah, I will tell you that since you smelled it as well, you are well aware that quite a few native tribes have older guns than other people.
That was literally what I was thinking, actually.
I thought you probably were, but I can't really leave it to chance. I have to make sure the character knows what the character would know.
No, I bring up that exact moment. It's probably one of the local tribes.
Well, maybe we should get back to town as quick as possible then.
Yeah.
I keep my eye on the sky and nod.
One of the problems, of course, is it's hard to tell how far away the smoke was, the gun smoke was originally, because of course you were inside, had to have been inside when it went off, and it was obviously didn't go off in your canyon because you didn't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
But for the smell to carry this far, all of the military men, once you realize there's a smell of smoke, would realize that was probably more than one gun.
Jacob is going to unhitch his horse and get on as quickly as possible.
I don't know if we want to be riding through the darkness without knowing where that smell's coming from.
I don't know if I want to be caught outside when it gets completely dark, not being able to figure out where the hell we are. I think we should get back to town as quickly as possible before the sun goes down completely.
I agree.
That's what everyone's thinking, then we better get saddle up.
You saddle up and you ride as cautiously as you can. Luckily, horses are pretty careful about where they step, and most of them can actually see better in the dark than you can, to a certain extent. And again, as Mr. McCallister brought up, it's not quite actually dark yet. It's just getting dim. So you're able to ride pretty fast back toward town and get into the street and about ready to find yourselves a place to bed down, either in the domicile you were using or possibly someplace together. And that strikes you as a thing you might ought to decide.
Gentlemen, I do have a house here in town. You are more than welcome to make use of the living room, and I will, of course, take the bedroom.
As long as that won't cause too much trouble, or not sure exactly how this town would view 3 men staying in the house of a local school teacher.
Well, I'll handle that. I am somewhat adept at handling the gossip of Bone Gulch. The thing I am not adept at is being killed by a crazy man who crushes wrists.
In addition, it occurs to you that it's a great thing that you have an established reputation as a God-fearing, church-going woman.
All right. Well, as long as it ain't going to be too much of a imposition on your part, I'll take your invitation.
Normally,
Well,
my
our
character
best option.
likes to speak outside, but yeah, he's gonna also take said invitation.
Excellent. Y'all
Yep.
head down to Miss Eloise's house. Miss Eloise, can you tell us what your house looks like?
It is a fairly simple sort of clapboard house. 1 bedroom, little kitchen with a dry sink, and then just a sitting area and a porch, little vegetable garden out back, and flowers in the front.
That takes a lot of effort, by the way, so the rest of you become very aware that Miss Eloise puts in some time taking care of her garden in the desert.
as we're riding through town, I assume the answer is going to be no, given the late hour. But are any of the gunsmiths open?
They are not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. And at this point, as you are settling in her front room with blankets and finding places to lay, I'm going to go ahead and cut the game as we are well into our time. And that being the case, I'm going to hand it over to Lion. And while he does the beginnings of the outro, I'm going to run off again real quick.
Okay, well, that was absolutely fantastic. I hope everyone really enjoyed that, because I know I definitely did. Thank you so much to everyone who hung out in chat, who donated, who shared this. Thank you so much to my amazing cast, who we'll get to in a second, because everyone, has to remind everyone who you are, what you do in the space, and where they can find you, because that's important. But also important is to remember we're doing this all for charity. Every single dollar you donate, from $1 to 100 or more, goes to the National Network of Abortion Funds. We talked about it at the beginning. We talked about it after the break, and I'm talking about it now because it really is an important cause. Seriously, if you can, anything helps. Again, if you can't donate, that's okay. Share. Tell people about this. The more eyes that get on it, the more people know about it. The more people know about it, the more I'll end up donated. And there are a lot of people out there who do need your help, because right now there's a lot of awful wars going on against bodily autonomy and giving people the right to control their own bodies. And that is not something we can abide. So we're here doing this. You can join us tomorrow for an exciting episode of Dice Trays. Actually, no, I'm sorry. You can join us tomorrow for a very exciting game of Dinosaur Wizards in Space. Forgot we were doing that this week. Really, really excited for that. That'll be a lot of fun. There's a bunch of info. You can find out about that over on my Twitter at TheLionKnight42. And I'll see you back here again then, but I'm going to pass things back so that our group can do their part of the outro, remind you who they are, where they can be found, and what they do in the space. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Jack, for just a minute.
Very well. Thank you all for watching. Before I do the final outro, I am going to pass it over to my fantastic players to talk about themselves just a little bit. If you would go ahead and start us off and out, Justina.
I'm Justina. You can find me on Twitter under Justina Revolution, and I write weird horror, sci-fi, and fantasy games. So thank you.
And Christopher.
My name is Christopher R. Rice. You can find me just about anywhere there's GURPS. I am a freelance writer and game designer. I run a Patreon, and I'm on Twitter. You can find me both at Ravenpenny. I run a pretty successful GURPS blog, so you probably stumbled across that if you're looking for anything for GURPS. And that's about it.
I would like to add he's actually straight up published some good GURPS works, and you should go find them. They are worth having. I did it. Stefan.
Yeah, so I'm Stefan Huddleston. You can find me on Twitter at Umbral_Knight, as in a knight in shining armor, X. And I am a history professor. I teach pop culture, film history, game history. I wrote one of my theses on race and gender in early tabletop role-playing games. And I am always musing in the space on Twitter and in other spaces about representation in gaming, in film, and in television, because that's near and dear to my heart and a big part of what I do in my teaching duties. So yeah.
I was super pleased to be able to get Stefan to join us for his intellect, his wit, his knowledge, and his fun. He is a great player, like all four of these wonderful players who have graced us with their presence. Please, please, please tell all your friends how good this was. Tell them when it comes up next, which is a week from today at the same time. And we will see you then. And we will all support the National Network of Abortion Funds together. I am Jack Kellum, Jack Gogsbane of Gods and Game Masters. I do want to point out that I am Cherokee, Choctaw, and Seminole, as well as Scots and Irish. So when I do something particularly racist towards one of those groups, I am in fact directing it at myself. Lion, if you could take us away.
Yeah. Thanks again to everyone for everything. We'll be back again tomorrow and the day after and the day after, because we've got 4 games a week. And we'll see you back here again next week for episode 2 of Terror at Bone Gulch.
Before we go, however, I'd like to say there's another face that you all might have to see in DTA. So we're going to have to see you all then. And hope to see you. This is the Eye signing off.
Oh, that was good. See, I wasn't even going to call you because you told me you didn't care.
Good night, everyone.
Later,
Good night.
guys. Thanks for watching.